Howdy. Welcome to part 2 of WTF. Halbert's got some splaining to do. I'm fresh back from the UFC mixed martial arts fights last night. I went to Buffalo Wild Wings, had some beer and a meal, and watched some very violent, bloody combat sports. Combat sports, it's kind of like an oxymoron, which is kind of like me. What the hell am I doing there? That's a reasonable question to ask. I got some splaining to do. Fair enough. So, the wonderful thing about the Ultimate Fighting Championships and me going to attend them and all of that is that it brings up so many issues so quickly, just in one big ball of a mess of WTF. So, where to start? One of the places I want to start with all of this is certainly that combat sports is oxymoronic in the sense that combat is not sporting. It's not sporting. So we've got this dynamic tension right from the beginning, and I can't resolve it. Right? I didn't create the term combat sports, but I can address it, and I need to address it. And it's fair to ask, why is someone who's involved with an epical revelation and announcing that we're, going to have a new age, and Macaventa Melchizedek is going to come back and go to Buffalo Wild Wings and have some beer and watch combat sports, watch women fight, or not. I tried actually to ignore that, and we'll get, to that part of the discussion quickly enough. So, one of the things I want to address, and one of the things I've been coming to understand about myself in this process of providing videos, is that we've got the Education 101 series, and we've got the WTF series, and what's the difference and why? I'm trying to figure this out for myself, and it has a lot to do just simply with the type of attitude and way of speaking, rather than the actual subject matter. And another way of looking at it is that the Education series is more philosophic and intellectual and imagining how the world could be, and starting from that and then applying real life to these constructs, as compared to starting with what's Halbert doing at Ultimate Fighting Championship events. Let's start there. Okay, more rubber meets the road. And more dealing with dynamic tensions that are in life that it'd be great if they were resolved, we think, or something, but they don't seem to have real easy and obvious solutions necessarily. So, to start with, I come from a wrestling background myself. I have a lot of experience with this from a young age, starting in 4th grade and through my senior year in high school, a bit beyond that even. And it gave me a very real experience of all of this, and a very personal one, and a very challenging one, and one that obviously still lives with me today in certain ways. And one of the great dynamic tensions in life is between men and women. And one of the great tensions in life is between being in the moment and having the maturity to be more farsighted and forward-looking. We associate that with maturity because of spiritual humility. That's why, like or at least this is one way to look at it, that we see opportunities for growth in ourselves. And in that understanding, we end up with a dynamic tension between who we are and who we want to be. And we've got it in mind who we want to be, but there's this understanding, this life experience of appreciative understanding that it's going to take time to get there, and we're going to have to live with that somehow. Somehow. I did it with a beer at Buffalo Wild Wings last night. Just saying. Not defending. Not apologizing. Not here really to give answers, but certainly willing to address it. So, in life, because of children and babies, they're so cute, and what they need is right now. Mothers, naturally, have a wonderful, God-blessed appreciation for what we need in the moment, what's considered now. Men tend to have the more forward-looking, and again, I associated that with maturity, and so that's going to have to be qualified and looked at, and hey, am I saying men are just naturally more mature than women? Well, maybe, but that doesn't mean they're more moral. Don't maturity and morality go together? One would think, hey, maybe there's a dynamic tension there that needs addressed and looked at. I'm not sure I can explain it all, but there's a lot here to unravel. So one of the things about combat sports is there's women in combat sports in this crazy oxymoronic world of blood and violence. There's women fighting for their right to enjoy that experience. And if I don't celebrate that with women, then that shows that I'm a male chauvinist pig who's part of the eons of oppressive patriarchy, and I should be ashamed of myself, and blah, 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 like that. And I'm not sure I can totally buy into that. I'm sure I can't buy into that. Dynamic tension. What are we going to do with this? I'm not sure exactly what to tell you, but I will relate some experiences at least. When I went to high school, there were no girls on the wrestling mats, and that was not an issue of the day. But when I went back to visit my high school and wanted to work out with the wrestling team, I think this is 20 years later, maybe 10 years later, but I think it's 20 years later. So maybe around 2000. And it was permitted for girls to be on the wrestling team, and there was a girl on the wrestling team, and I showed up, and I'm there to offer coaching assistance and, you know, be that kind of person. I was an undefeated wrestler my senior year in high school, as I mentioned, I think, did I mention? Uh, I started in fourth grade. I had a lot of years of experience and fantastic coaching through the process. So there's a girl on the team, and I'm given, the task to teach a certain type of move, technique called a crab ride, where you're getting behind the person and grabbing on from under the armpits like this and controlling them that way. And I did not feel comfortable with this. I did it. I did not feel comfortable with the fact that I was uncomfortable with this. And I'm still, decades later, uncomfortable with all of it and without a clear sense of resolution, but it's certainly going in the direction of simply I guess wishing for a world where the mentality did not encourage and foster and make attractive the types of emotional experiences that go with learning combat. There's things in life that I cannot imagine emotionally, like suckling my newborn child. What's that feel like? I don't even want to sit here and try and pretend like I would know. I'm okay with that. I see that there's different roles and different emotions that go on between the sexes. I want to honor and value that. And I see that there's spiritual equality before God, and I want to honor that. And finding a balance between these things is certainly, I guess, what life is all about, and rather challenging this way. It's not hard for me at all to appreciate the human courage, the determination that it takes to be involved with what are called combat sports. Female people have these real experiences of courage and determination. And no doubt there is a spiritual counterpart that grows their soul, and it's a beautiful, wonderful partnership with God that could happen a lot of different ways, and I wish it didn't happen in combat sports. Just saying. I don't know how to get there exactly in a way that makes everyone happy and leaves me liberated from so much of that negativity of not respecting women sufficiently, properly. So it was interesting to note in the event last night that I went to, where the main fight was between Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, that these two fighters are so different in terms of how they relate to life and what they're doing and all of it. And the winner was Dustin Poirier, and the loser was Conor McGregor. And it involved a terrible leg break. It was terribly violent end to a combat sport event. In the lead up to it, there were a lot of insults from Conor McGregor towards Justin Poirier, and Justin Poirier was the one trying to maintain the composure and professionalism and positive attitude and not get drawn into it. The insults to his wife didn't get to him so much. But when Conor said that he wanted to murder him in the octagon, to kill him, that got to him. And it got to him because before he goes into the octagon, he prays for the safety of both fighters. And so this was the most offensive thing that Conor could say, and this is what really seemed to get under his skin and make him want to beat Conor down, whether it's in the ring or not, ironically, as a faithful person. This is what gets brought out in all of this, that I see and respect and have relationship to, but don't pretend to understand or be settled about. I care for how it inspires me to be a better person because of the courage and determination of the people involved. And their humanity is my humanity. And so I can relate to it that way. And obviously from my experiences and the challenges of my experiences, it continues to stimulate me to be involved with it. It brings people together in a way that transcends nationality, religion, race, not sex, because there's male and female. And when people try to blur those distinctions, boy, is that a mess. And that's happening. And I talked about that earlier. And I could go on for so long about this, and I will go on more about it, I'm sure, from time to time as all of this develops. But I think I leave it there at this point. And no, I won't. I won't. There's a little more I wanted to say about all of this, which is, it really makes me reflect on my own aggressiveness and hostility and nastiness as a person, for sure. I wonder why it is that I am this way. It's not like everyone goes into wrestling and really makes something of it. It's highly combative, competitive, fierce, dangerous type of undertaking. You know, it's really something when what you're choosing to be involved with is another person trying to physically stop you from everything you're doing right now. Now means now. But you better be thinking 3 steps ahead or you're going to lose. In the moment, thinking ahead, a lot of dynamic tensions here. Any rate, I noticed there's a big gap between where I am and where I want to be, and a tendency to react and respond very aggressively in ways that I regret later all the time, and push people away and make a mess of life and all of that stuff. And I feel very bad about it, and I'm sorry for it, and I don't really mean to be that way. Oftentimes I apologize for it. Oftentimes I just don't like have enough hours in the day to apologize for all the nasty stuff I do, it seems, and still move ahead. And I have to, take a look at that dynamic tension in my own life. And I do. Maybe I don't have to, but I do. It's bothersome to myself and others, of course. And I wonder how much it goes with certain things in life needing to be accomplished, and how much it just has to do with me being an SOB pain in the ass. From the other video series on education and music, I commented about how one of the things I learned when I had a weekly jam and would sometimes rotate around to different instruments, I noticed how being in the different roles brought out characteristics that were commonly associated with, drummers or lead singers or lead guitarists or bass players or whatever that was. And can't help but notice, I certainly have involved myself in life with things that are highly controversial, not politically correct by today's standards, regarding issues like race and sexuality and roles and relations, all this stuff, spiritual beliefs, on and on it goes. And it's rough. It's very combative. It takes a lot of effort over an extended period of time. It takes responding in the moment when it's game on, all of these things. And any rate, it doesn't shock me to see that what I've chosen in life as a path also has some relationship to combativeness and not getting along with people. I don't want to use that as an excuse. Like I say, I much prefer to get along with people and communicate graciously and tactfully and all of this stuff. And I wonder, how much it's the role and how much it's me all the time. But I do notice that we're in some serious dynamic tensions these days with issues. And people are losing their minds over it and being very rough with their family and friends all the time. And in a lot of ways, it's a lot more gruesome and bloody and violent and less civilized than anything that happens at Buffalo Wild Wings on a Saturday night. And I think maybe that's where I want to leave it. God bless. Talk to you again later.